Okay, I get all that, but it went beyond that. I mean, they actively prevented people from getting in better physical shape, cardiovascular health, and then all the women's magazines, which are still influential, decided to put fat women on the cover and say, this is the new body ideal. And the soap companies and the makeup companies. This was clearly an orchestrated attempt to make people think it was okay to be fat in the middle of a pandemic that was killing fat people. So that's the point where I'm like, actually they are trying to kill people. Because like, what could, no, I'm serious.
Right.
What could, if I encourage my children to smoke cigarettes, maybe I'm trying to hurt them.
Or maybe you're trying to sell cigarettes. Maybe if 60% of the country is fat and you're Dove, you want to sell soap.
Maybe, but like they've never tried that before. There had never been a time
Philip
like...
Morris tried to sell cigarettes for a long time.
Of course, but being fat, no woman wants to be fat. And all the women's magazines spent decades telling women, you shouldn't be fat. That's why they don't want to be fat. And then during COVID, it's like, no, be fat. At the exact time when being fat could kill you.
I think that trend
I
was
see
happening
malice.
before.
Like, wow.
I think that trend was happening before. I do. The DEI stuff on obesity, which I agree. Like obesity is terrible for people in general. I mean, even if it doesn't.
Look, I'm not. I personally am not judging fatness at all. I'm just saying.
No, but physically, it's terrible.
It's not good for
people.
you, right?
Yes.
And for public health authorities to be promoting it and stopping people from getting on the treadmill. That's
I don't know. I don't know. They were
literally
discouraging people from going. Yes, they were closing gyms,
but keeping liquor stores open. And weed dispensaries.
Yes.
So that's the point where it's like, look, I'm not some kooky internet conspiracy guy, but how many signs do I need that you're trying to kill me before I say you're trying to kill me?
I think people make bad decisions.
Yeah, but they're all consistent. It's like they're all pro-death. It's like, oh no, we're not going to spend any time working on therapeutics at all.
Well, they did. They came up with one that didn't work at all, remdesivir.
But people were kind of trying all this different stuff, and like the media immediately jumped, you can't do that! How dare you try something other than the vaccine? And then, I interviewed this gym owner, Ian Smith,
I remember.
20 times, and he's like, I just want people to work out because that might help.
Shut
up, criminal!
That's right.
And so, I don't know, I think it's important to be more like your dog. Your dog can't speak English. He has no idea what you're saying. He just watches you, and then he knows your intent. I'm watching them, and I can tell their intent, which is to kill me. What am I missing?
Their intent is to make you feel good about yourself, even if it kills you.
I don't see those as separate categories.
They are, though.
They are?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Want you to
Firing
die.
squad, opioid OD. One feels good, the other doesn't, but they both kill me, right?
You're not going to get me to say it.
No,
because I don't really believe it.
Look, I don't understand what happened during COVID, but at all. And last thing I'm going to do is going to speculate or say anything, that I can't.
You speculate all the time.
I do, but on this, as to motive, it always makes me uncomfortable to speculate. Though, of course, I do it, and I regret it every time I do it because you can't know another person's motive. But you can watch what they do.
Now, I got something for you, Tucker.
I'm ready.
This is one of a kind. These are 4 of the great villains of COVID.
I love that. Here, I'm going to put this up to the camera.
The next time you're shooting.
And you tell me what this says and what it means.
Okay. Fauci and Gottlieb and Slavitt and Borley. Now everyone knows who Tony Fauci is.
Now, the bottom guy's a veterinarian, I think.
He is. He's also the head of the world's largest, or what was the world's largest in 2022, pharmaceutical company.
Great.
Andy Slavitt was the senior advisor for COVID response under the Biden administration from in early 2021. And Scott Gottlieb is the former head of the FDA who left the FDA and 3 months, I believe 3 months of the day later, which was the earliest he could, joined the Pfizer board, where he is a senior board member of Pfizer. He also is on CNBC all the time, where he always manages to say something good about Pfizer's products. So these 3 of these 4 men, not Tony Fauci, are defendants in my lawsuit against the Biden administration and Pfizer for their unconstitutional efforts to silence me and get me thrown off Twitter in 2021.
So can I just, thank you for that. I will wear this with pride or without pants. But either way, I will have this on.
It's one of a kind.
It leads to a question I've been wanting to ask you since we've had so many interviews over the years, but 2 questions. One, you became very focused. I mean, you were a successful novelist. Your books are in my shelves at home, actually. former New York Times reporter. Like, you had this whole life that had nothing to do with any of this, and you just like basically threw it all away to go after this story. Why did you do that, and what have the effects been?
I did it because I didn't have any choice. Because it's like you take one step and one step and one step. I remember once being in a
You don't have a choice. You go write your novels.
No, you don't have a choice if you're a certain type of person or a certain type of reporter. I remember I was once in Iraq in 2004, and like I'm not a particularly physically courageous person, but it's a war zone, and I was talking to a lieutenant colonel who is a tough guy. And we were sort of out there, and he said, this is just what you do. Like, you just, all of a sudden, you're in the middle of it. Like, you just take a step at a time, and then there's kind of no going back. And I pursued the story and the truth to the best of my ability.
But you weren't even a reporter at the time. You'd given up reporting and you were writing novels.
I'd always been a reporter. I even the novels would be better if they were a little bit less reported and a little bit more flights of fancy. That's my one regret as a novelist, is that I could never, I'm writing about Islamic terror and, in various, there are spy novels about modern events, but a really great novel, whatever the nominal category, has some magic in it. And that's something hard for me to put in my novels. I'm very fact grounded. And so when, and I write about this on Unreported Truths, like we talked a tiny bit about the baby bust, which is something I'm now interested in, because I look for stories that, as an individual reporter who's not working for the New York Times, I can do in a credible, reasonable way. It'd be hard for me right now to go to Israel because I don't have a big organization backing me up if I get shot in the head or something, right? So these are, COVID, believe it or not, is very data driven and is a story that I could follow. I look for stories where I think I can add something to the conversation because the mainstream media, usually for political reasons, doesn't want to report on it, and I look for stories that are important. And COVID obviously was the most important story.
Do you look for stories that will make you super unpopular with everyone you've ever known during the course of your life?
That's just an added bonus. Losing 3/4 of my friends and messing up my marriage was just an added bonus.
But you kind of knew that. I don't mean to pick at an open wound, but you kind of knew that going in, because anyone who asked, I remember the first couple posts you wrote on this were greeted with ferocity. People were very angry.
I don't like being told what I can and can't ask.
That's a spirit. By
anybody, and certainly not by the Biden administration or Pfizer. Okay, this lawsuit, we have filed our initial suit. They have filed a motion to dismiss, all three of which are the federal defendants. Andy Slavitt is his own defendant, and then Albert Bourla, who's again the chairman of Pfizer, and Scott Gottlieb have their own lawyers. I guarantee you, this is a good day for the law firms, right? But so they've tried to dismiss it. We've now filed a response to the motions to dismiss, which I think is very strong. And by the way, we're now asking for third-party discovery, meaning we want Twitter to turn over everything that Pfizer or the White House said about me. And Elon, I'm hoping, Elon, you'll hear this and you will tell your lawyers to do this and not fight the third-party subpoena. But so if we can get past the motion to dismiss, and I believe we can, we will get the discovery on what the White House and Pfizer were saying to each other about me, and possibly somewhat more broadly in the summer of 2021 about the vaccines. And that the world needs to know what was really going on, why everything changed, why the public attitudes towards vaccine skeptics got so much harsher, why there was a push for boosters, why there was a push for mandates. I'm not really exaggerating when I say that this lawsuit is maybe the only chance that we're ever going to have.
Has anyone come up to you in your personal life to say, congratulations, you've been vindicated? You took a lot of crap, but you turned out to be right.
One person in my town has said to me, you know what, you were right about the lockdowns. No one's ever said it about the vaccines. I think people just want to forget the vaccines, most people were vaccinated, obviously, and they certainly want to forget what they thought and said to unvaccinated people.
There's a fascist strain right beneath the surface that I did not perceive until that moment. and it was very distressing.
I mean, one thing my wife said to me, I can't remember when, and she was right. She said, there's a large part of the country, must have been 2021, that if Tony Fauci said to them, this will just end if we just burn Berenson at the stake. Just burn him at the stake. That's all we got to do. Like, there would have been people with pitchforks on our doorstep. And she's Canadian. I think she was, although the Canadians behaved terribly.
Well, the Canadians are very easy to control. I mean, it doesn't take much. But Americans, you're from this country. You grew up here.
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
Yes. Oh, this is what I wanted to say to you earlier when we were talking herd instinct. Okay, we were talking about the baby bust and how easy it is, and why parents don't challenge, let's say, as you mentioned, DEI stuff in classrooms that they might not like for their kids. I mean, just go back 3,000 years, okay, when somebody committed a crime. There were no prisons, right? So how did you punish that person? You left them.
Yeah.
You left them on their own without the protection of the herd, and mostly those people died, right? We think we're lone wolves, but we're herd animals. And if you can get, 60, 70, much less 80 or 90% of the population moving a certain way, it gets harder and harder to stand up. And so, I mean, I think that force is overwhelming, and it doesn't. And I think the U.S. actually has more people willing to stand up, but that doesn't mean it has a lot.
And speaking of, last question, but you alluded to this a second ago. Your new interest, or one of your new interests, is in the population and its decline because people are not having kids.
Yes.
What's the overview?
So all over the world, and certainly in the U.S. and in Europe, it's most visible in Europe and in East Asia. Birth rates have suddenly gone off a cliff. I mean, the South Korean birth rate now is barely 1/3 of replacement level. And there doesn't seem to be a bottom to this. And I mean, it's really stunning in that it's happening across every culture, or every religion, every ethnicity. The only thing that the countries have in common, attitudes towards women are different in these countries. The only things that these countries have in common is that they're wealthy.
So you're saying, and now that I think about it, it's probably true, the birth rate in South Korea is lower than the birth rate in North Korea.
That's a great question, but probably true. I haven't looked, but yes.
I wonder if there's a clearer indicator of the health of a society than its birth rate.
I mean, it's certainly hard to square that with a healthy society, or not a lot of anxiety among young people. And the idea that this is happening in wealthy societies, but it doesn't seem to be driven by economics because, there's still pockets of high fertility for ultra-Orthodox Jews and various other religious sects, and those people are very rarely wealthy. So it's not a problem of lack of abundance.
It's caused by abundance.
The
richer you are, the fewer kids you have.
Although at the very top, certainly in places like New York
City,
there's
Elon.
No, you see this where there's a little bit.
I'm trying my best.
Kids is a luxury good the very, very top, but not broadly. So this is something I'm just beginning to explore. I know you want me to make some grand pronouncements about it, but I find it fascinating. It's obviously fascinating to readers.
Because I wonder what's more important than reproducing.
Right. Well, my joke is it's the future of humanity is at stake. Now, obviously, we're not going to get to zero anytime soon, but it's pretty striking. And somebody said to me yesterday, well, it's about the Earth's carrying capacity, and that's just nonsense. I mean, we can support far more than 8 billion people with current
I wonder, though, you hear a lot of chatter about, depopulation strategy. I don't know if it's a strategy. I doubt it was hammered out at Davos or anything, but clearly there's a depopulation instinct.
Yeah, that's what's so bizarre, right?
Clearly.
Let's
look at the effects. I mean, if you cared about your country, you'd want people to have kids, right? Do you want grandchildren?
Of course.
Because you love your children.
Right.
So if you loved your population, you want them to have kids.
I mean, I agree. It seems like a very basic idea that a healthy society at least retains its population. And, the countries in East Asia are already beginning to shrink, amazingly. Now, Taiwan is shrinking. I mean, and as Elon said to me, this was a few months ago, he said, you know, you can make it very complicated demographically, but it's actually very simple. Multiply the current level of births right now by 85, and that's what the population will be in 85 years, assuming the trend doesn't continue.
Right.
So for a country like Taiwan, they have 130,000 births this year. They have 23 million people. 85 times 130,000 is about 10 million. So that when I say they're not close to replacement level, I mean they're not close to replacement
They're
level.
going extinct.
Well, I mean, if that continued at that level, you would be, you know, you'd be down 90% in 100 years. I mean,
That's
it's pretty stunning. I look, these things can reverse. You look at, you know, popularly the baby boom, you know, post World War II, there were tremendous, you know, growth in population in the U.S. and Japan and other countries. So these things can reverse, but there's no sign it's even stopping.
Can I just throw one final thing at you? So the conventional view has always been, well, this is a result of birth control. It's become much more sophisticated and widespread in the past 50 years. But if you look at the rate at which people are like having sex, they're not having sex.
They're not having sex. Young men not having sex.
So, I mean, who saw that coming? But that's probably about the darkest thing I can think of. Like, what is that?
Right, that's part of this. I mean, you know, and it's funny, right? Because for a couple years in the aughts, there was, oh, the internet is, you know, it's gonna like, there's gonna Tinder. They're all gonna be screwing all the time, all the youth. It turned out that's exactly the opposite. It didn't happen at all. And
Which is worse.
the latter is worse. Not is worse, I think.
Way worse.
Way worse. Yeah.
Well, I just want to, first of all, thank you for the lovely sweatshirt, which I will wear this afternoon.
All right.
And also to congratulate you on being vindicated. And no one else.
Even
is gonna
if
say it,
no
but
one
I'm
else
gonna say it.
notices.
No one else notices, but I noticed.
Unreported truths, my friend.
Dishonest and dangerous. Okay.
Younger people say the news is full of lies.
In Kennedy's motorcade.
239 people. The death of Jeffrey Epstein.